Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. How's your week been?
You tell me about yours first.
Well, I'll start with the BT story, as we've just had issues with my internet. Our BT is supposed to be about 16 to 18 megahertz per whatever it is, and it got slower and slower over the last week. So we finally went through the torturous process of ringing them, going through all their little tests that they make you do, and our speed was 1.1 download instead of 18. And our upload was just infinitesimal. And so they sent out a man, and we all had to be on the alert in case he wanted to come into the house, fully gowned up, obviously. But it turns out that it was, yet again, an outdoors fault. But we wouldn't have known unless we'd done the test and gone through this painful process. So Phoebe's now on a mission to get a broadband that is perhaps solely for her use, or just hers and mine. And so Nelson can have the BT because we're locked into a contract. And we found that we can get 50 to 60 kilobits a second, or whatever it is, megabits a second download with Vodafone. And you could get something like 20 to 30 upload speed, which is just unreal. It's like I had in Greece, but it's a gadget that sits on your windowsill, which is quite amazing. So we're probably going with that.
Is it a contract or what?
Yes, it's a contract, but Phoebe's just desperate because we do a lot of uploading video and audio here.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. We have to swap to tethering to our 4G phones in order to get a 10-minute video online. That's 6 minutes when you do it like that. But
yes,
literally would take 2 hours. Would be.
Yes, and no justification required. It's an essential tool of your business, you two.
Absolutely. So I've used up a lot of my personal bandwidth this week playing poker with Peter. I've been for scones with Heather, sitting in her garden.
Oh, good.
We just made them literally as I was coming round, and I sat in the garden in the sunshine and ate cheese scones, which was nice. And we had a COVID-19 scare with Irving's Jo this week. She's a dentist, as you know, and she thought she had it. Went for a test, shambolic organisation at the test centre apparently, but got the results back within a day, and she's absolutely fine. So she was just under the weather and exhausted, I think, because she's been offering emergency care to her dental surgery patients, and doing a lot of the work herself. So
yeah, that's good of her.
Yeah, and of course the big news of the week was the Bitcoin halvening, which sounds like a rather fairy-like magical thing to me. Other people call it halving, some people call it halvening, but I like halvening. It's where the supply of Bitcoins coming onto the market dropped by half, thereby making it a scarcer resource and therefore more valuable. Interestingly, coming up to the halvening, the price didn't go up by much. It went up a bit, but it didn't go up by much. But now the halvening's over and it's all settled down again. Several big fund managers have come out and admitted that they're 1 to 2% in Bitcoin in their funds. So everyone's now piling in, and the price is going up in a very gratifying way to those of us who've got some. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. So it's been a great week, really. Really enjoyed it.
Good.
What about yourself?
I've had a quiet week filled with cleaning and the jobs of being the chatelaine at the big house now that I'm here alone. Les, the OAP gardener, came back to work last Friday, which was brilliant. But when he looked at the task ahead of him, because, May is this time of the year is the big sort of growth spurt, isn't it? Yeah. And one day after he's been off for 6 weeks or something isn't, I think he managed to mow the lawn and it needs doing again when he comes tomorrow. Anyway, people are starting to drift back. The maintenance guy, Andy's, coming in tomorrow. And I was told to expect visits from somebody who would come and take the car away for servicing. He hasn't come yet. But and I was asked, could I check the levels of water in the swimming pool? This has all kept me quite busy. I've had an epic fail with the swimming pool because I have to turn on a hose and have the other end in the swimming pool. And the first day, it was so dribbly that I thought, well, God, that's going to take hours. And I was told to turn it off at 8 o'clock at night. And I went back the next day and I managed to get a better flow going. But when I went back to turn it back, the hose had become detached from the tap, and all the water I thought that was going into the pool had just sort of gone into the garden or somewhere. I can't work out. I've used a hose in the past where there's this sort of click connection. I'm going to have to get the boys tomorrow to help me. I think I'm going to have one more go today, so I don't look like a dizzy blonde tomorrow. But I think they probably need a new hose connector, because it just pops off if you get a decent flow on the tap, if you know what I mean.
I know,
which is what I need a decent flow in order to get the pool to fill up. Anyway, whatever.
You know this gadget of which you speak. I had one in Greece.
Yes, I know. I think we all do, don't we?
And I never had that with mine either. I always used to have to get the landlord to come down and do it.
Yeah, you can't remember the knack then. There's a sort of, I want to say click and collect. It's not a screw. It's a sort of combination of pushing something up, I think. Anyway, it's been weathered in the sunshine, and consequently it's absolutely feeble. And I feel the need for gaffer tape, but I don't think that would help, because water and anything I might tape it up with is not going to help, I don't think.
And the sunshine perishes anything rubbery, so the hose is probably
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The hose is fine, actually. It's the plasticky connector that's not very good.
Okay. Yeah, I had this with my automated watering system, and it took the landlord and I about 2 years to figure it out, so the garden was well dry by then.
Yeah. I'm going to keep going, if that's all right.
Yeah,
I've still got things to say in this section. So I was surprised to note from some of the recent comments on our Facebook group that people regard, indeed, they look to our podcast to be about business, whereas in your introduction to all 275 episodes so far, you've said your business and your life, with the emphasis on the word and. And it reminded me that it goes to show that the meaning of our communication is what people comprehend, not necessarily what we intend, as the NLPers say. The business category on our podcast website is 65 episodes out of the 275, whereas, for instance, mindset is 86. So it's just surprising, that's all, and notable, and something we should bear in mind. And having said that, we started in November 2014, and until Steve died, and you told me last week when that was. When was it Steve died?
March 2016.
Okay, so for the first 2 years, your focus was on business almost exclusively. You kept trying to drag the podcast back to business all the time, and you still do occasionally, and that's cool. Mine's never really been on that, which is why we had the two halves of it from day one. Of course, you can't take the businesswoman out of the girl, but I'm just as interested in psychology, for instance, and a whole raft of other things, which I'd like to be able to talk to you about week by week as ideas and enthusiasms come and go. And as Irene pointed out, latterly we've both moved more in the direction of the life half of the show, and we've had conversations about whether or not to stop our podcast and start again with what interests us now. But we haven't made a decision about that, and it certainly wouldn't ever be made on the basis of a suggestion, which is because it was more popular. I don't think we're that cynical, and I hope we never will be, but I think we must be allowed to speak our truth, and there is surely room for that in a podcast which essentially just is two creative women in conversation. And I don't think you and I would have it any other way, and I certainly wouldn't want to be involved in any such alternative. I don't know what you think.
We've said everything there is to say about business tactics, marketing tactics, money tactics. We both know that it's not about the tactics, it's about what's going on inside your head that makes the difference between whether
which is presumably why mindset's a bigger category, Nicola, isn't it?
Yeah. And the other, I'm always going to be interested. I mean, before I got on the call today, I had a call with Neil Asher, my ex-business partner and friend, talking about a change of branding for him because he wants to expand his Aussie online entrepreneurs into Europe. And we were talking about how to position that. And so, he said, I was telling him about Twitch, and he said, I don't know anybody else who keeps up with these things like you do. And I think it's just that I'm always interested in new tactics. I can see the potential for them. I can see where they fit into people's marketing strands. But, and I'll always bring up new things on who or what's impressed or what's fueled my fire. But again, it's no good talking about a tactic like Twitch if your head's not straight, if you're feeling insecure, if you think you're too young or old or not attractive enough for things, So I think I'm always going to bring up new tactics, but again, it's the headset is more interesting nowadays than that. And
I think also, funnily enough, we are going to talk about business today.
Yes, good. But we are, again, we're going to talk about the mind part of it, because that's what matters. Yeah,
a bit. And I think it's what interests us both, isn't it? Because we've worked with so many clients. I mean, as I always say, being in business is easy. It's the other stuff that goes all around it, isn't it?
Being in business is easy. It's actually doing it that's hard.
Yeah, like as with everything. Yeah,
exactly. And I agree with you. And for God's sake, it's our podcast, and we can talk about what we blooming well like. And if people don't like one week, then they should just stop it and come back next week, perhaps.
Well, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because comments from the same people are raving one week and not so good the next, and actually we've invited that, we asked that, and that's what feedback is. Absolutely. I do think if I could say one thing, it would be, if there's one week where we go off on a tangent, please forgive us, it's only 1 out of 275.
Yeah, really, there's lots of others to listen to.
Yeah.
Well, we're not being so bonkers that week, perhaps.
Have you found something to fuel your fire this week?
Oh, I've had the best money gin testimonial ever, as you.
Oh, cool! From a new person.
Yes, I've been doing these sitting in podcast with Andy, and of course, all of his crowd have never heard of me, but because I'm there positioned as one of his friends and experts, people go, while you're on the podcast, they go hunting you down. They put your name into Google and things, and this lovely lady had put my name into Google, come across the Money Gym book, and she had read it, listened to it and read it in a weekend. So she was listening and reading at the same time, which was interesting. And she just sent me the most amazing testimonial, and it reminded me how good the content of that book is. Not because I wrote it, because to be honest, it's an amalgamation of all the good stuff I've picked up from lots of other people, all of whom I credit in the book. So it's not me trying to pass it off as other people, as my own stuff. But some of the Amazon criticisms are, this is just a hodgepodge of other people's stuff. Yes, it is, but it's put through my personal lens of my life and my experiences of what's worked for me. So she got that completely. And what it's done for me is it's actually fueled me up to do this job that I've been trying to do for a while, which is I'll talk about that in project updates, but it's fueled me up to do the job because it's reminded me how life-changing content it can be, and how I've got a duty to try and find a way to deliver that content in a way that's more accessible for some people, rather than having to listen to an entire book or read an entire book. Because this lady's of mature years, not as mature as us, but she's maturer, and she's used to books. But there's millions and millions of people out there who are never going to read a book and never going to listen to a whole book, but who would get value from the content if it was chunked down. So it's
I think also you've saved her time by curating the content, haven't you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I've only included the content that I feel actually would make an impact, both practically and emotionally and psychologically. So it's not just a load of old stuff cobbled together. It's me putting it through my own personal filter, which is where you bring value to any project, your personality, your experiences, your background. There you go. You can tell how fueled I was because I
was just going to say, you're quite fiery. That's good. Yeah.
I could feel myself winding up there. So what about yourself?
A video which I'll link to in the show notes. It'll only appeal to the hippie part of our audience, of which I consider myself to be head hippie. It was a video from a woman called Lorie, Lorie Ladd with 2 Ds. It was shared with me by a former client, now Facebook friend, Joanna. The title of the video is "Remember, You Are Shifting the Human Collective," and it reminds me to stay out of my anger and judgment and what's right and what's wrong and my desire to have the world wake up to what's really going on, and turn instead to be the transformative 5D frequencies and be the way shower for those still in fear, greed, lack and control. Laurie's words, not mine. I'd moved to this place about 2 weeks ago, but this little video has fueled my fire to continue with it as a deliberate practice, and I shared it with those of my pals who are impatient for the transition we're going through. I know this is gobbledygook to those who've no idea what I'm talking about, and that's okay. And we all come to this in our own time if we're open to it. It's about being I don't know if you remember, I don't think you know him, a chap who coached me briefly, who I know really well, who was one of the founders of Alternatives in Piccadilly, is a chap called Steve Nobel, and I really admire his work. And he addresses us, he addresses us every day as starseeds on Facebook. His website is called something like the Soul Matrix. He's very spiritual. And I know that this sort of waking up is already working because of the number of people who come to me what I call round the back, i.e. they don't comment on the stuff we put out, but they come and ask me privately on Facebook Messenger to help them with waking up. And it goes very much to the point that you made about, the video goes very much to the point you made about knowing in your knowing and feeling the underlying energy and frequency of every message that you see everywhere. You remember you said that? I can tell, Andy said he can tell in his knowing, the vibe of every message that he looks at. And Lorie's saying the crucial thing is to root out these darker energies of fear, control, greed, and lack. And I've watched that every day since it was sent to me, and it just reminds me all the time, go to the vibe you want, Judith, go to the vibe you want, get out of the difficult places.
Yeah, that's great, and I'd love to see it because this week I've you were going to ask me if I wanted to see something, and I just had reached a place where I wanted to be awake and be aware, but not absorb, not spend any more of my time on it.
Well, I mean, if people send me messages with dark messages in it, that I know about, I don't have to read them anymore. I just say thank you and move on.
Yeah. No, that's great. It sounds great. I do remember him, and you loved Alternatives. I never got to go, unfortunately.
No, if it's much easier if you live in London. We would turn up every Monday at, I think it was 7:00 for an hour. That's where I met Sue O'Kell. I remember she's great. I've seen some marvelous speakers there, and you turn up on a Monday. It's a gorgeous wren church full of hippies, and we have little candle lighting ceremonies. And I've seen Michael Neal speak there. I've seen I've seen Marianne Williamson speak there. Wow. It doesn't happen in quite the same way as it used to. They do much more online than even before COVID. They do much more online, but it was a great resource.
Reach a bigger audience, can't they? But yeah, so that would have been lovely to go to on a Monday night. I can't think of anything on a Monday.
Well, a talk, you see, a thought-provoking talk where on your way home you would think about it. Even the next few days you'd think about it. It's quite stirring.
Start the week, yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so talk to us about our focus this week then.
Okay, so it's going to be what does it take to be self-employed? So on Monday, I asked my Facebook timeline how those of us who are locked down alone were experiencing that. And if we are ordinarily alone, like I am, that's easier for us, surely. And everyone agreed pretty much. And I asked what was different. And one lady who's not self-employed but is working from home said it was so much better without having to go on the tube. And that when she finishes work, she's already at home. A couple of joys that you and I already know. In fact, I shared with her that it was the awfulness of the tube in the 70s, which was 50 years ago or something. That was one of the very reasons I was self-employed, because I couldn't abide public transport. And it was making me literally mad, because I would sit on Green Park tube station waiting for one to come along with a seat on it for me, and that would take like 3 hours. So that's bonkers. You can't wait for a tube for 3 hours. You've got to get on one. Well, I couldn't get on one, that's the point. And she replied, I've never had the skills or chutzpah to be self-employed. And I wondered aloud with you, if that's what we think it takes, does it take skills and does it take chutzpah? And did I have either of those at the age of 22? No, I didn't. So if not chutzpah, what qualities do we think it takes and what skills? Shall I go first?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was lying in bed this morning. I thought, well, the answers to this will come to me by Wednesday, because I've done it for so long. And so I lay in bed this morning and I made notes on that little thing on your iPad called Notes. And I wrote here just 3 out of thousands. These are the first 3 that came to my mind. And they're lovely seesawy ones, because they go on one hand this, on one hand that. You've got to want it at the same time as feeling you've got no choice for whatever reason. So if you can't hold down a job and you need to make money and you need something to work around the kids, those are the expediencies. But that's not enough. You've got to want to be self-employed and create something as well. So I've written here desire as well as expedience. You've got to be able to flex through every different sort of task in your business and your home on the same day. And I'm going to give you my day today as an example. So it's Thursday. I do the podcast with you, then I do the show notes. I'm up the big house. So I'll do my laundry. I'll take the dustbins down. I'll put the hose in the swimming pool. I'll water their plants. I'll collect their post. I'll tell them what's in the post. I'll scan the bits of post they want me to do. I've got a client at 2:00 and a consultation at 3:00. So I've got I've got to mix and match that all day long, but that's my choice. So, you sometimes, as well as being able to be that sort of flexible, you've got to be able to put all of that aside, despite whatever else needs to be done at home and what you want to get done, just to clear a task, big or small, to meet a deadline, let's say. So despite working at home, you need to be able to focus on and not be distracted by domesticity when it counts. But that's also the beauty of it, that you can do the laundry at the same time as you're podcasting. So I think that it's a good thing to remember. There'll always be work tasks. There'll always be those work tasks at home, but there won't always be clients if you can't prioritize the work to meet the deadline and deliver professionally. And I've called that flexible, yet determined when it counts. And my third one is enjoy life, enjoy the daylight, the lack of commute, the lie-in, be thankful for that, but don't allow anyone to mess with you, brackets mostly, just because you work at home. So until you're really good at it, put some boundaries, read telephone calls and visits and drop-ins during the daytime and requests and people dumping things on you during your working hours just because they don't think you're really working. They think you're pretending. Pretend like you have a job. You pretend like you have a job, but those things wouldn't be allowed. People can't endlessly phone you and pester you at work because you've got a job to do. So I've put, take yourself seriously as a business long before you are, and not just someone who's always at home, so that's handy for everyone else. Have the ability to say no. If in doubt, say no. This is the thing I read in a woman's magazine when I was a teenager, and I've never forgotten it. I absolutely love it. If in doubt, say no, because no is more easily changed to yes than yes is to no. So if you say yes to somebody and then you have to change your mind to no, they're very grumpy about it. But if you say no to somebody and then you feel you can change your mind to yes, they're very happy about it. Yeah. And my friend Susie from Manchester, who features in everything I talk about and do, her children call her first response negative. I think it would be good if you're a boundary light person working at home to be first response negative.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that.
So those are my three. I thought you might like to know that I've written loads on this topic. So I Googled to see if any of my articles came up, and I found a wonderful one from 2010 I'm going to link to called How to Be Successfully Self-Employed. But I found a brilliant one from The Guardian. I'm just going to read you the points of it because, hang on, it actually, so here we go. 9 essential tips for the successfully self-employed. Number 1, behave as if you're at work because you are.
Yeah, nice.
Haven't I just said that?
Yeah.
Be good to, and this is a lovely one, be a good boss. The most damaging trap that many self-employed people fall into is not treating themselves well. Now, all of these are longer at the article. 3, get paid. Securing the work and getting it done is the fun part. I totally agree with that. 4, banish guilt. No idea what they're talking about there yet. 5, take a break. 6, get a raise. 7, use work speak. I don't know what that means. I probably wouldn't. 8, learn to say no. So the Guardian's 9 tips have got all 3 of mine in there somewhere, which quite impressed me, actually. Anybody would think I was an expert in this sort of thing, Nicola.
Right, can I give you my skills and then we'll move on?
Yes, you can. Over to you, caller. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I've got that, thinking about the things that have made a difference, because, again, I've worked with lots of clients and I see the ones who do it well and the ones who struggle a bit more. And I've got time management here, and I've written comp, and I don't know what that is now, but time management is about zoning your time. Because I feel very strongly that if you...
Yes, I know you do. Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Admin and marketing, and then Wednesday, Thursdays to deliver, and then Fridays for marketing. Because unless you actually set aside time to market or you outsource it, it just doesn't get done. And it has to get done because that's how you attract clients. And there's no way around it. It's not if you build it, they will come. They will not. They won't only not come. They won't ever have heard of you. So you've got to make time management about all the tasks that, need doing. Be willing to learn or pay to outsource. There is no other way around this. For example, I'm just learning in more depth how to use chatbots because I feel that email is dying. And so I've either got to learn chatbots or I've got to pay someone to do chatbots for me. And I'd rather outsource once I know how to do something. I know that is something that holds me back a lot in business, but I like to have at least a rudimentary grasp of what's going on. Otherwise, I feel very vulnerable. And so I'm going to learn chatbots, and then I'm going to either outsource them or train my VA to do what I want her to do. So, but there's no way around this. You cannot run a business without learning things or paying other people to do them for you or paying people to teach you. So if you've got no money and plenty of time, you learn it. And then if you've got no time but plenty of money, you pay other people to do it. And the final thing was about valuing yourself. I watched a really brilliant YouTube video yesterday. It was shared by someone who I respect and like, and whose name escapes me at the moment. But it was basically, I can't swear on this podcast because we're PG, but it was basically pay me. And it was about the challenges that creative people have on valuing their expertise and their skills, having the balls to charge appropriately for them, and getting solid contracts in place at the point where the client will sign anything to get you working for them, which is not the case later on in the relationship when the client is changed their mind or brought in another designer or the project's been shelved or whatever. You've got to value yourself and your expertise. You know that whole thing about bringing someone in and knowing where to hit with the hammer in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You've got to know that you've worked up to this point and they need your skills and expertise and they're willing to pay for it, and you need to charge what you want. So you have to value you financially before you can actually sell your services. And then you need to have very firm boundaries, because people don't come into a relationship looking to screw with your life, but things go wrong along the way, and you need to have a simple contract in place that outlines these things that may go wrong and what each party will do in the case of them. So boundaries and values was something for me. So those are there's more, but those are the three.
Yeah, I know. There's thousands. It's interesting that you and I have both picked three that speak to us personally still.
Yes, experiences we've had.
Yes.
Then on to the chutzpah bit, which I have also done / mental strength, because I think you might not have had chutzpah and you might have just been ignorant of the dangers that awaited you, but you wouldn't have got through the things you then encountered if you didn't have mental strength. So resilience, I think, So you tell me.
I think I was quite brave, quite intrepid, quite adventurous, quite up for it. I forgot to do this, so I haven't rehearsed a word for this.
Okay.
I've made chutzpah my word of the week because I absolutely bloody love it.
Well, I've got you have and do good things. So I think it's important when you're in business and that you actually believe in what you're selling. And if you treat people well, I think it does come back. Karma is a real thing. And if you treat people well, I was on the phone today to someone who I've been in and out of business with, in and out of friendship with, and we've always managed to, even though he's not, he hasn't, at one point he didn't have a very brilliant reputation, but he's always treated me really well. And I've tried to do the same in business as well. I try not to be horrid to people and shaft them, because you never know when you'll meet them again. So,
well, I think what you're referring to there in a funny backwards sort of a way is it's a long game.
Yeah.
And in order to play the long game, you've got to believe from the beginning it's going to work. So whether you do or not, see it working, so that you behave in a way that it's like a career. It's a career choice, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And in careers, you definitely bump into the same people again and again.
Yeah.
My point 2 speaks to that as well, because even if you don't know if it's going to work, number 2 I've got is you will persist. Because if you come across the first obstacle and you give up, then you're never going to get anywhere in life. So you've got to have that persistence that even if you don't know how to solve this problem necessarily, that you'll find a way to solve it. Or that if this one is insurmountable, that you'll find a way to get, I always just think of it as a boulder in the road that's filling the whole road. You've got to find a way to get over, under, through, fly over, whatever. You've got to find a way, tunnel under. You've got to be persistent. And finally, the last thing was that I was sort of myself as an extrovert. It turns out I'm more of an introvert nowadays, but you've got to be brave with the networking. And I pick up the phone, which is something I absolutely never do, but I meant metaphorically. So, for example, when Heather wanted to get her album out, I hadn't been in the music industry for 20 years, but I started ringing around and saying, we're looking for a jazz distributor. And people would say to me, people want to help. And if you're willing to ask, people will try and help. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Pick up the phone or pick up the messenger, whatever. Put a thing out on your timeline asking for help. And funny, if I was talking about chunking down my financial intelligence program, and you said to me, why don't you see if any of our old clients have got it stashed away in their inboxes? And nobody had the whole thing, but Marion had enough of it. Not only did the thing she sent me remind me of all the words that I could search for in my own archives, but there were so many testimonials on the thing she sent me that I hadn't remembered or saved or kept. So that gave me a whole new source of new testimonials, which was great. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and people want to help if you ask them. So don't be scared to start networking towards the solution you're looking for.
I've had another thought while you've been talking, which is, even in the time that I've known you, which is only half my business career, both of us have occasionally thought, it's so tough out here, I think I'll go and get a job. But as we started to apply, in my case, for the, doing accounting for old clients, and I can't even remember your efforts, but I can vaguely, I know that you've done it. As we both got close to thinking of going back and doing that as an easy route to a paycheck, we ran scarily in the opposite direction again, because we knew we couldn't do it. We couldn't do a job, either of us now, could we?
Well, I think if I was brought in to build a marketing...
that's not a job, baby, is it? That's a consultancy.
No, it's not. No. And, I do look occasionally, because I have an alert set for digital marketing manager, digital marketing director, head of digital marketing, just out of interest, really, of what's going on locally, because I just simply couldn't commute anymore. I just couldn't do it. But I couldn't do it in the 70s. But then when I read the job descriptions and I realise how much people demand for how little money they're
I know.
And I just think, you're calling that a social media manager, but it's actually a
slave.
It's someone to do everything in your marketing for you. Yeah. About £2.50 a week. It's madness.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I keep those alerts going just to remind me of how grim it would be to try and go and get a job, even at my age. I don't think.
Yes.
That's why I keep the alerts going, to remind me how grim it is out. It's grim out there.
Well, it's a bonus tip, really, which is whatever you need to remind you why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But so you didn't make any specific notes about the chutzpah?
No, because I thought I'd covered it in a way in what I said, but. Yeah. I'm going to move on swiftly to word of the week, because mine is chutzpah. I love that word, and I looked up what it meant literally. It means extreme self-confidence or audacity, usually used approvingly.
Oh, very good. Yes, absolutely.
So people are generally approving of people with chutzpah. You could call it the cheek of old Nick sometimes, which is, it's audacious. There you go. It says here, extreme self-confidence. I didn't have extreme self-confidence when I was 22, but I had enough. Yeah. And audacity, it's a lovely thing.
You get a lot further with it, that's for sure.
It's a lovely thing, yes. Now, you tell me what your word of the week is.
Flexibility, because
there you go. That was my first one. Yeah.
You've got to have it. You've got to be able to. I mean, I really didn't want to have to turn anything into bots but you've got to move with the times. You've got to not be a dinosaur. Project updates then.
None from me, but I should warn you, I've got a very long who or what's impressed.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll tell you what's going on here. I'm trying to puzzle out how to turn 101 pieces of content, which I've got in written form in the book and audio form in the audiobook. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out how to get that in the hands of people who don't open emails. And it's been a really interesting thing, because I figured out the best way to do it is to get people to subscribe to the bot. The bot goes out with a message every day, which is time delay. So you can do a bit like dripping an email out. And then people click a button in the message to go to a page on your website, which is hidden and password protected. and then they can either listen or read. So that's how to do it. The benefit of doing it like that and not putting, well, you can't put a long message in a messenger message anyway. So you have to send them somewhere to get the content. And the benefit of doing that, of course, is that your content has all got Facebook pixels on it. So you can track, you can make a lookalike audience out of people who visit your pages. So as my content is divided up into property, stock market, building a business offline, building a business online, I'll be able to build audiences out of people who are interested in those 4 things, which I think, I don't know what I'll use that for, but I know it'll be useful in the future somehow. So, yeah, and then finally, just, you'll not believe this, Judith, I haven't advertised anything for a while since we turned off Stupid Life advertising when the COVID thing hit. And I went into my account yesterday just because someone's asking me locally if I could help them with their Facebook ads, to see a big red message that Facebook had banned me again.
Oh, in what capacity? Where?
Well, the message said you are not allowed to run any ads, run any ad accounts, start any new accounts, blah, 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 the same old thing. And I thought, do I really give a shit? Am I ever going to do really? And then I thought, no, I'm not going to be beaten by these people. So I submitted an appeal, and within hours, I got a very polite email going, your account has been disabled in error. We're sorry for any inconvenience we may have caused. I thought, if I'd actually been really running,
yes,
I'd have been furious about that. But I just thought,
well, there goes to the tenacity. Never say die.
Yeah,
you could take that both ways. Actually, I might go, oh God, it's battling uphill against Facebook. Let's do something else. But you could take it both ways, couldn't you?
Yeah. And I just thought, no, I'm going to submit an appeal because I hadn't even been advertising, Judith. So things. I was just
sorry. It is quite funny. It's quite funny.
It is when you think about it. But it's the algorithm. It's just turning people on and off randomly at will. It's not a person. You can't take it personally.
Well, I think that's the concerns about AI, isn't it?
What, that will be all at the mercy?
Well, that algorithms don't really work very well.
No, they don't. They don't. Anyway, so that's my project updates. I haven't looked at our figures for ages, but the last time I did, we're very healthy through this whole lockdown.
I would like you to, and let me know later because I'm quite curious about that.
Well, I can tell you off the top of my head that we had 1,200 downloads in the last 30 days, which is more than the 600 to 800 we normally get. So,
do you mean a week?
A week, yes. Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, who or what's impressed? Should I go quickly and then you can go?
I was going to say yes, I do want to because I've got a long educational lecture here.
Okay. Well, I'll be nice and flippant then and tell you that I've thoroughly enjoyed watching all 9 of the Star Wars films in one week. Oh. The storytelling got better and better. The special effects obviously got better and better. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this marathon. So all I can say is if you haven't seen them all, pick up on the later ones were great. I really liked them.
Are they all 9 George Lucas?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we're on to the 2 spin-offs now. There's a spin-off called Solo, which is the early days of Han Solo and how he came to be the Buccaneer, the space Buccaneer that he is. And I'm really enjoying it. And I think we've got another one called Rogue One, which I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm looking forward to that too. Phoebe and I.
And are the spin-offs George Lucas too?
Yeah, it's all the same franchise. It's
because he owns it. Yeah,
money spinner. It really is. Yeah. And you see all the ships, and you think, in fact, one of the toys I remember Nelson had it when he was a little boy. So it's very nice to watch and be reminded of my kid's childhood, which is lovely.
It's an impressive body of work for a creator, isn't it?
Yes, and the fact they got better and better and better instead of worse and worse.
Well, they're a bit clunky at the beginning, weren't they? In terms of the scenery creaked, didn't it, at the beginning?
And men in white plastic suits. I mean, but they never got better. Actually, the white plastic suits didn't get better, but everything else did. Because the stormtroopers were just so iconic, they couldn't change them, I don't think. But no, I loved it, and it really did get better, which was lovely. Good. Over to you, madam.
Yes, well, I'm going to lecture you this afternoon on Professor Jordan B. Peterson and what I've learned about him, because I've been continuing my research into him, and I've got lots to tell you on this topic. So I've downloaded his book on Audible called 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. And I've downloaded it because it runs to 15 hours. And I can't really read these days. I don't know why not. But I've watched his long lecture about the 12 Rules for Life on YouTube, and it was about an hour and a half, and it was put on by the How To Academy, and it's great. And there's a short version of it as well, and I'll share both links of those so people can do it. And he's talked, obviously, to Joe Rogan about not only the book, but he's been on his show multiple times. And I've looked at Jordan Peterson's website, and it's a fantastic business model, actually. But I'm taking a course on there for $29.
The writing course?
It's called Self-Authoring, where you journal online about your past, present, and future. But I'll come back to that in a minute. His material, all told, is rather challenging because he tells his truth. He's uncompromising in that, and it turns out to be one of his values and one of the 12 Rules for Life. He's a clinical psychologist as well as a professor formerly at Harvard, now at Toronto. He's a Canadian, and I appreciate that mix very much of him being a practicing clinician and an academic. So he's not just a fusty academic, he's got real world experience of helping people with their miseries. The book makes a lot of mentions of the Bible, or is underpinned by the context of the Bible, and I think some might find that difficult, but he's clever, he's funny, he's emotional, he often cries in his lectures about man's inhumanity to man, things like the Holocaust and you know, Russia and things like that, and also about our humanity. He's often very deeply moved by our potential. In fact, one of the lectures, he begins it in tears, which is, you know, I cry like a leaky bucket, so I really appreciate that about him. Now, the journaling project, I think, is going to be hard. I started it yesterday. I think it's going to be, I did an hour of it, and then it was completely exhausting. I had to stop. It requires, and that's only on the beginning of the past, and I think all told, it could be a minimum of 12 hours. And in the middle model, which is about your present, there's two models. It breaks down into two sort of sub models. One is about your virtues, easy. One is about your faults. Well, obviously, Nicola, I haven't got any faults. I don't know what I'm going to write about in that section, but I do think I'll find that quite so it's about rectifying your flaws and developing our virtues, which I like quite a lot. And so I do think this journaling project taken all together is going to be a big job. You know, $29 underestimates what it's going to be worth and what it's going to take, I think. So I had to psych myself up for it a bit. And the third module, Designing the Future You Want to Live, is essentially goal setting, which I've been over for quite a long time, so I'd need to get into that again. But I think it'll be useful for me and for my clients. And I thought I would read you a list of the 12 rules, which are the chapter headings.
Can I just point for the benefit of the listeners? I've read the book last year, loved it, watched the talks last year, loved them. Love his clear thinking. That's his absolute, his purity of thought is.
He's quite aggressive in it, and he's got into trouble at both his university, and he was quite horrid in an interview with a woman who was interviewing him for GQ magazine. He was in a gorgeous suit and looking fantastic, but it began antagonistically from the first question. But anyway, I'm going to read you these 12 chapter headings. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. This is about serotonin, but it goes into this very funny idea of being the number one lobster instead of the number 10 lobster. And when you go to the merchandise on his site, you can get lobster socks and lobster pajamas and all sorts of things like that, which is quite funny. 2, and these overlap with some of the things we discussed earlier today. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Oh. Yeah,
3, make friends with people who want the best for you. We've all had to clear out a few unhelpful friends in our lives, haven't we?
Yes.
Now this is one I've highlighted. 1, 2, 3. I've highlighted about half of them. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Corker. This one, perhaps more for you and other people and listeners and my brother. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
Ooh.
Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. That's one I've highlighted because I think that's quite challenging. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Here's the one, number 8, that gets him into trouble. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Well, he tells his truth relentlessly, and it sticks in people's craws. But the truth is the truth is the truth. It's a bit like where we were 2 weeks ago. Number 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. I'm not really very good at this one. I love being in conversation, but I can't wait to express my opinions. I do believe that people, when I listen to people, that people have something valuable. Everybody has something valuable to say. And sometimes I do these sessions with people where I say nothing at all and just listen to them. And I know how really empowering it is just to be heard. So fascinated to that one. And it's true when you go to cocktail parties and you say, tell me about yourself, and somebody does. It's always fascinating. Number 10, be precise in your speech. Number 11, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Number 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Now, obviously, these are just to hook you into the book. Now, I want to talk about his website. jordanbpeterson.com, because you can navigate from there to another site called Understand Myself, which is a profiling site where you can answer 100 questions to find out more about yourself. And you know how much we love these. $9.95. Took the test yesterday, and I can tell you that I am agreeable, compassionate, conscientious, industrious, enthusiastic, assertive, open to experiences, intellectual, and open generally. I'm average at politeness and orderliness. Both surprise me a bit because I think of myself as polite and orderly. And number 3, I'm low in being neurotic, withdrawn, and volatile. That didn't surprise me either. But there is one in there which I'm not even going to tell you about because it's so unlike how I see myself. It's almost embarrassing. And I did the quiz with a friend and she said exactly the same thing. She had one she didn't want to tell me about. So if you go to his website, it's a lovely business model based around his long career. It's got books, podcast, affordable online tests, speaking tour in support of the book, journaling product, YouTube channel. There's something for everyone there. It's nicely laid out navigation, although it's a bit complex when you get into these 2 products because they take you off onto separate websites. What's that one called about journaling? It's called selfauthoring.com is the journaling one, and Understanding Myself is the profiling test. And when you go to both of those subsites, you have to create separate, if you're a customer, you have to create separate logins. So it's all a bit confusing at that point. But, I think I'm all in. Frankly, I'm all in.
I think it's the most important book for getting clarity about who you are since 7 Habits for Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
I think as well, and Stephen Covey, who, as you know, I'm the most writer like on lumosity. I think Stephen Covey's is business focused. I think this man's is life focused. Oh, there you go, your business and your life. Stephen Covey for your business, Jordan B. Peterson for and your life.
Yeah, and I wish, the thing I love about it most is, because I'm someone who always tries to fit round pegs into square holes, and I've made myself miserable over the years by trying to do that. And I think clarity of thought and knowing yourself really well and being absolutely honest and knowing, it's a stoic way, isn't it? He reminds me of the Stoics. You can't, it's what is. Don't fight what is. Try and find a way to change yourself.
Well, the little Swedish girl who stayed with me, stayed next door, in the big house where I am speaking to you from today, said to me, you know yourself really well, don't you? I said, yes, I do. And somebody else once said to me, the lady that took my photographs of the book, how are you so certain about everything? And I said to the friend I'm doing this with, we talked it through at length before we agreed to do it, because I don't think this is a light undertaking. I think there's a lot of work in here and a lot of navel gazing and a lot of self-examination, and some of it's not going to be very nice and some of the book's going to be quite difficult. So I said, look, we're not going to like this, but we're not going to give it up. If we go for this, we're going to actually encourage each other through the entire project because it's very worthwhile and it's going to be challenging at times, challenging enough to want to give it up.
Yes, and I knew that, which is why I haven't tackled it yet. I'm saving it for when I have more headspace because I think it's going to be really important for me. And do
you know what I think as well? I think even if I retire during COVID because I have to furlough myself, I think it's going to be useful for my future.
Yeah, it's useful. He's very passionate about helping people to be happier. And being happier means working with what is and knowing yourself inside out.
So you didn't struggle with the biblical context of the book, Nicola?
No, because he's not religious.
No, I know. That's it. No, you see, it's cultural that, because actually, even though you're not religious and resist religion, we were brought up with these, concepts about right and wrong and all that kind of thing, which vaguely came from the Bible.
Well, I think that that's what the Bible was written for, to give people guidelines for how to live a good life. And I think
I agree.
It's got a lot of value because of that. What I'm really resistant against is organised religion, where men have seized power and used it to dominate lots of other things.
I agree. But can I just say that sometimes because of that and the strength of feeling you have about that, you sometimes throw out the baby and the bathwater.
Yes. Well, I've never actually done that in real life, dear listeners.
No. But what I'm saying is you're so extreme about it. I'm kind of, it's biblical, so what? And get on with it. You know what I mean?
Well, because what stirs me is the hundreds and hundreds of years of injustice. That's what I get.
Well, but it isn't just that. That's the point. And I know it's because I'm a member of what I call the low key C of E. Where it's all just about him singing and rituals, and you have a wedding and a funeral. Yeah,
no, I totally think that I didn't find him at all. It barely registered with me that.
Oh, good.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I thoroughly endorse it as well. It's amazing.
Good. So I will be reporting back probably in project updates, because this is a project for me, really.
Yeah, a good way to experience him, I think, is through the Joe Rogan interviews, because he is quite a lot lighter in those than he is in some interviews.
Well, and some not, actually, because he's got in trouble at his university because of political correctness that he won't buy into. Yeah. And when you look at that initially, it looks anti-female. And so it does bring up the hackles on the back of my neck. So that's why he's quite challenging. He challenges you to look again at things you think you've made up your mind about already. Yeah. And I do think I'm going to say, actually, I'm not sure. For me, I don't think the Rogan is the best. I think the How To Academy long version, and then somebody's created a cut and paste 12-minute short version. Or I'm linked to both of those. Yeah. I do think if you like the look of him after those two, you can spend hours on YouTube and hours on him on Joe Rogan, because he's been on there a lot, because he's so fascinating.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, that's us done for the week.
All right, babe. See you next week.
We'll do. Bye.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.